I'll get one with you in it.
Oh, okay, and then I'll get one. Okay.
Right, and then we'll get one with all of us.
Yeah.
Of Liverpool, birthplace of the Beatles. Your driver's name is Les? My name is Eddie. On the right hand side, this bar now called Witherspoon's, formerly a department store called Blackwell's. It was there in 1960 where George Harrison worked as a trainee electrician. He worked in the store for 9 months. He often arrived late for work of a morning and often took unofficial days off because of his work with the band, the Beatles. The manager of the store asked George to make his mind up. Do you want to be a professional electrician, George, and finish your training? Or do you want to mess about with a rock and roll band? George made his mind up and said goodbye. We've got a celebrity on the bus here today, but I'm going to ask him first. Can we talk about him? We'll see you later. It's like looking in a mirror, isn't it, with all these celebrities on the bus? Ahead of us now, left to right, is Lime Street, mentioned in the song Maggie May, a song recorded by many artists, including the Beatles. Maggie May used to be a lady who worked on Lime Street. She welcomed the sailors into Liverpool, mostly one at a time. She robbed one of the sailors and the judge said, Maggie May, you'll never walk down Lime Street anymore. And she was deported to Australia. And we miss her, don't we, Les? Next case was Hugh Grant. He got fined and then he became famous. Infamous. It must have been Divine Providence, wasn't it?
Divine Brown.
Divine Brown? I thought it was Divine Providence, Les. This lady said it was Divine Brown. Were you at rehearsals? Over on the right hand side is Lewis's department store. It was here in 1960 where Paul McCartney worked as a van driver's assistant. On the left hand side now, the Adelphi Hotel. It was here where the Beatles stayed when they returned from their first American tour. And John Lennon's mother Julia worked at the hotel in the 1940s and 1950s as a waitress. And the video Free as a Bird was partly filmed in the ballroom at the Adelphi Hotel. The rest of the video was filmed around Liverpool, mostly at Penny Lane. And you see the bus that you're on now being driven by your driver now, Les. You were there, weren't you, Les?
I was there.
You had to wear makeup that day. That's show business, isn't it, Les? Not for us, is it, Les? 23rd of August 1962, where John Lennon married Cynthia Powell. Brian Epstein, the Beatles' second manager, was John's best man at the wedding. And present at the wedding was Paul McCartney and George Harrison. On the night of the wedding, the Beatles worked at a venue across the River Mersey with their new drummer, Ringo Starr. 2 weeks before the wedding, they'd sacked their drummer, Pete Best, after 2 years with the band. The wedding ring was paid for by John Lennon's Auntie Mimi. In the same building on the 3rd of December 1938, John Lennon's mother and father were married. Julia Stanley married Alfred Lennon. On the right-hand side now is Rodney Street. It was here where the Beatles' second manager, Brian Samuel Epstein, was born. At number 4 Rodney Street on the 19th of September 1934, in what was then a private nursing home. The building is now the application office for the students of Paul McCartney's Fame School. A place we'll be going to see a bit later on in the tour to hear more about. Coming up shortly on the left-hand side is Liverpool's Catholic Cathedral, the Metropolitan Cathedral of Christ the King. Designed by a non-Catholic, originally 22-year-old Edwin Lutyens. Built in the 1960s, only took 7 years to build. Very modern 60s building. The 4 bells on the tower represent 4 saints: Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. We did ask for John, Paul, George and Ringo, but they said no, they're not saints. But Ringo's a good name for a bell, said Les. We're now on Hope Street, and on the left-hand side, the Everyman Theatre. It was here in 1981, the world premiere of a musical play simply called Lennon, starring Liverpool actor and musician Mark McGann as John Lennon. He broke your heart? You couldn't dance? Didn't even want him around? Do you love me? Tell you later. On the left now, the Red Door, number 36 Faulkner Street. It was here where Brian Epstein, the Beatles' second manager, had a town flat on the first floor. He lent his flat to John and Cynthia when they married, and they celebrated their honeymoon here for 2 weeks. It was while they stayed here that John first heard Love Me Do being played on the radio for the first time. And it was while they stayed there that John wrote a song called Listen, Do You Want to Know a Secret? Said to be written about Brian Epstein's private life. What was the secret, then? Secret? On the left-hand side now is the Blackburn House, Liverpool Institute High School for Girls. One of their girls was called Edwina Curry, and she became a British politician, God help us. Let's hear it for the politicians. Edwina Curry's favourite Beatles song is I Am the Eggman. We're now back on Hope Street. As you look down the street on the right now, you see the Liverpool Institute High School for Boys. It was here where Paul McCartney and George Harrison attended school, from 11 years old to 16 years old. Recently, Paul has bought the old school building. It's been renovated and extended at a cost of £15 million and was officially reopened on the 7th of June last year by Queen Elizabeth. But they had admitted students in January last year. Huh? You saw that, did you? Did you see it on the telly? She's doing another tour of this one here, Les. What are you talking about?
No, I'm just looking at it.
And someone on the bus here today was there, meeting his old friend, Paul. But we can't tell you who that secret person is on the bus at the moment. But we were there, weren't we, Les? And we saw these people meeting.
We did.
Yep. So there's no excuse. They're not getting away with it. Paul met the Queen on the steps and showed the Queen around the school, now called the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, based on the famed school in New York City. Paul has promised to teach at the school with many show business friends, including Joan Armatrading, Elvis Costello, Lou Reed, Brian Wilson, Mark Knopfler, Jose Feliciano. Jose Feliciano? He's not from round here, is he?
I don't think so, man.
No, he's not from round here. And Sir George Martin, former record producer with the Beatles. I have suggested we spend the money on something more important and buy a bass guitar. And you can join the band, Stuart. And we'll be famous one day. While John was at the Art College, he shared the flat with Stuart Sutcliffe. Ahead of us on the left now at number 3, Gambier Terrace. Level with the next lamppost on your left now. It was featured in the film Backbeat 3 years ago. Over on the right hand side is Liverpool Cathedral, the largest Anglican cathedral in the world, designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. He also designed the red British telephone boxes. Same design, only it's a bit bigger. One of his phone boxes is inside the cathedral. The red sandstone came from Woolton Village, where John Lennon lived as a boy, Woolton Quarry, and he attended Quarrybank High School for boys. And the name of his first band was taken from the school's song, We Are the Quarrymen. Ringo Starr was born on the 7th of July 1940, named Richard Starkey, the same name as his father. His father was a baker in this area and his mother Elsie was a barmaid. This area is called the Dingle, named after a peninsula on the west coast of Ireland, although all the streets in this area are named after places in Wales. One of them is Madryn Street, on your left hand side now. As you look down, 5 doors on the left, you see a for sale sign, the yellow sign over the door, although in truth it was sold a week last Saturday for £13,500 in a worldwide auction. When Ringo was 4 years old, his father left home, but he did send round 30 shillings a week for Elsie and the baby to live on. Ringo's earliest memory was leaving the house where he was born. They moved over to number 10, Admiral Grove, on your right hand side. Where the halfway down now, where the lady is, the white painted house, is number 10. Ringo lived there from 4 years old to 23 years old. When Ringo was 11 years old, his mother Elsie remarried a carpenter called Harry Graves from London. And 2 years later, Harry bought Ringo his first set of drums in a second-hand shop in London for £50, and he brought them up on the train. On the right-hand side is a bar called the Empress, featured on the cover of Ringo's first solo album in 1970 called Sentimental Journey. Ringo celebrated his 21st birthday party in the small house at number 10. Many of the people stayed in the street or in the backyard because of the small rooms in the house. When Ringo was 5 years old, his mother Elsie gave him the bad news. You've got to go to school. They came here on the left-hand side to St. Silas Primary School. Elsie left Richie here at 9 o'clock in the morning. At 12 o'clock lunchtime, he ran out into his mother's arms and said, "You told me I had to go to school. I've been to school and I don't want to go to school anymore." Didn't want to go, did he, listen? He was surprised after lunch when he was dragged back there and he was told, "You've got to go every day." Oh dear. Also in the class with Ringo was a boy called Ronnie Wynchley. He later changed his name to Billy Fury and became a famous Liverpool rock and roll singer. And also in the class was a girl called Grace. Have we mentioned Grace, Liz?
Oh, yeah.
Grace could have married Billy Fury, the rock and roll singer. Grace could have married Ringo Starr, but Grace married Les. She said Les is the best. And you agree with her, don't you? Sometimes. When we're on speaking terms.
This whole street is clean, right? I don't know if it makes sense.
On the right now, the shelter in the middle of the roundabout, mentioned in the song. On your far right is the bank on the corner. In the song, the banker never wears a mac in the pouring rain. Very strange. Coming up on your left-hand side, the barber shop, mentioned in the song. The banker's sitting waiting for a trim as the fireman rushes in from the pouring rain. Very strange. If you give the barber a wave, he'll give you a permanent wave. Threw that in, Les.
Throw it out, sir.
Throw it out, okay. Coming up shortly on the left-hand side, a bar called the Richmond Tavern. George Harrison was born on the 25th of February 1943 at number 12 Arnold Grove, Wavertree Village. We're now on the high street in the village. We leave the bus shortly, go down the side street on the left hand side, see the house where George Harrison was born all those years ago. All those years ago. Are you still looking for a singer in your band, Les?
I'm still looking at it.
Yeah, you're still looking for a singer, yeah?
I just can't go on anymore.
George Harrison.
Please remember how I feel about you. I could never really live without you.
Darkish, not that road. Got the stitches out yesterday.
Oh, is she better now, is she?
No, not all together. I've got to be careful. Oh, I can take her walk, you know, little walks. She's had an operation on her leg. And she expects to be patted and petted. She's the best dog in Liverpool.
Best dog in Liverpool. That's wonderful.
Just come here. Babe. Come and say hello. She expects everybody to pat. Oh dear, oh dear. See her leg, you're not taking them.
He was here where George Harrison was born, and he lived here till he was 6 years old. Then the family went to live near Liverpool Airport on a newly built housing estate called Speak near the airport. Now George lives on a large estate in Henley-on-Thames in Oxfordshire, near London. His two brothers and their families live on the estate with George. One brother looks after 12 gardeners. There's only one gardener here, and here's the gardener, Ged.
We're just sprouting now.
Oh yeah.
All the leaves.
Doing well. It's the best garden in the street, yeah. It's the only garden.
The only garden in the whole district.
You have to go to the park if you want to see a tree. And Uncle George attended St. Peter's Church, coming up shortly on the left-hand side, top of the hill, where John became a choir boy with his best friend, Pete Shaw. In the graveyard here at St. Peter's Church, a gravestone to a lady called Eleanor Rigby. Outside the church is a monument to peace, a message that John carried with him in his life and in his music. On the 6th of July 1957, they had a garden fete here in the back field behind the church. And John's band, the Quarrymen, were invited to play and entertain the crowds from the village. After the first show in the afternoon, John met a friend from the audience called Ivan Vaughan. He introduced John to a boy called Paul McCartney. Paul told John that he sang and played guitar. John asked Paul, "What did you think of our band, the Quarrymen?" Paul told John, "You can't play the guitar correctly, and you don't sing the right words to the songs." John wasn't very happy. He gave his guitar to Paul and says, "Okay, clever clogs, show me what you can do." The first thing Paul did was tune the guitar in correctly. Then he surprised John again by turning the guitar upside down and playing left-handed 20 Flight Rock by Eddie Cochran and Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis Presley. It was here at St. Peter's Church the Lennon and McCartney partnership was born, and the rest is Beatlemania. John's earliest memory was when he was 4 years old, playing in the back garden of his Auntie Mimi's home. He heard the sound of the Salvation Army brass band play behind the garden wall. He asked his Auntie Mimi what it was all about. Mimi told John, behind the garden wall, John, is a children's home called Strawberry Field. When they have a party, the band plays in the garden at Strawberry Field. John asked Mimi, can we go and see the band at Strawberry Field?
We did it again.
Okay, we'll trade.
Okay, you have to trade for me.
Well, I get doubles all the time.
Okay.
Oh, I do too.
Oh, I know.
Oh, there's two. All right. But I want this one.
Oh, yeah, I want this part here
Like in front of the gate.
too. Like a grayson on the wall of his house, on his house, right on the right on the thing. And it's really. You know what? That was kind of funny.
Until May 1963, a few weeks after Julian had been born in Liverpool. Then they went to live in London so John could be near Abbey Road Studios. Mimi often told me stories of John's childhood here. When John was 11 years old, he asked his Auntie Mimi could he have a bike. Auntie Mimi told John, if you pass your school exams next week, John, we'll buy you a bike. A week later, John arrived home from school with a school certificate that said pass. It was the first one he'd ever had. It was also the last one he ever had. We don't know to this day if it's genuine or not. But the bike was waiting for John in the garage. He rode out to the driveway, one hand in the air. He thanked Christ for the bike. When he returned 3 hours later, he was told off by his Auntie Mimi. One, he was late for tea at 6 o'clock every day. And two, he never said thank you for the bike. John said he remembered saying thank you for the bike. Mimi said, we watched you drive out, John. You thanked Christ for the bike, but Uncle George paid for it. Christ, you know it ain't easy. 8 months after moving into this area, Paul's mother Mary died of breast cancer. Paul was 14 years old. He paid tribute to his mother in the song called Let It Be. He explained Let It Be by saying, whenever he argued with his brother Michael, their mother Mary would come into the room and say, let it be, boys, let it be. The house was recently sold. It's now owned by the National Trust. It's now a listed building. The top of the list is Buckingham Palace in London, where the Queen lives. The bottom of the list is a new house on the list where Paul McCartney used to live in Liverpool. Because of his mother Mary's work in Liverpool as a district nurse, whichever district she was given to look after, they would supply a house in the district. This meant that the McCartney family lived in 9 different homes around Liverpool. But this home we're going to shortly, Paul lived from 13 years old to 21 years old. It was in the house we're going to many of the rehearsals with the band took place. And many of the early Beatles songs were written in the house by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. From this bus stop every day, Paul waited for the bus to go down to the Liverpool Institute High School for Boys. One day when the bus arrived, Paul went on the bus looking for somewhere to sit down. He saw a boy wearing the same school uniform as he wore. They didn't know each other, but the boy had a guitar with him. Paul sat down in front of him and said, "I play guitar and sing. My name's Paul McCartney." And the boy with the guitar said, "My name's George Harrison." Ooh. Paul was 1 year older than George, so they'd never met before. But the guitar brought them together. When we get to the house of Paul McCartney, we're going to introduce you to somebody who's got a story to tell you.
That's got full use in the picture, isn't it?
Okay, this is your camera now. Right.
Somebody living.
A family
You got
from
the
the
20?
National
Yeah, I have
Trust.
the 20. Can you hold that?
They plan to open it so people can go in. It's not open yet. Hey, video, take two. Paul McCartney lived here, number 20 Forthland Road, Allerton, from 13 years old to 21 years old. When Paul was 21, he bought a house across the River Mersey for his father James to live in and his younger brother Michael. And Paul asked the removal van to come here at midnight so the fans wouldn't follow and find out where they were going to. 3 days later, the fans found the house across the river. The grapevine. Someone was talking. The last time Paul came here, he arrived in a blue Mercedes car, parked on this side of the street, facing up this way. Paul at the wheel, he's near the pavement. In the car with Paul is wife Linda and their children, and an actor called Victor Spinetti, who was in all the Beatles films, and a great friend. He told me what happened.
David? Maybe that.
Oh, he's here, yeah.
Oh,
They're on the coat.
yeah, they're on the coach. He taught me into bringing them. Your nephew.
Some of the pictures you sat with Paul on the piano
Yeah, in his house, yeah.
and guitars, but Paul said to Peter, "I want to play this for you. I hope you like it." And none of us had ever heard it before, and it was called
Free as a Bird.
Free as a Bird. He played it.
That was up from the master tape he played it 8 months before it came
Yeah,
out.
he put it on while
Yeah,
you were there,
yeah,
didn't he?
yeah.
He played it to Peter before any of us had ever heard it. And he came back, sworn to secrecy.
Like 8 months previous, wasn't it, before it was released, yeah.
So
I told you, didn't I, Eddie?
last year, oh yeah, he told us in confidence. And there's some pics on the bus, so when
Yeah,
we get off
yeah.
at Matthew Street, you can have a look, or you see Peter in the Cavern Club at the end of the tour. And have a look at the secret pictures in Paul's house.
How cute.
Where does he live now? I want to know where he lives now.
They're getting close, Trish.
And then get her.
Let's say something to the Cavern Club. They're getting close.
Okay. Am I going on?
All life-size statues to the Beatles. Inside this bar, the Cavern Bar, there's all displays of all the artists that played the Cavern and dates below of when they...
Nothing you can sing the country song. Nothing you can say that you never again.